The shelter was quiet, except for the restless shuffle of paws and the soft hum of fluorescent lights. Claire stopped in front of the cage with a red sign, Danger, Aggressive. Inside crouched a cat that looked more shadow than flesh. Her fur was patchy, scars scored across her nose. Yellow eyes darted, wide and unblinking, following every move Claire made. Claire's hand trembled on the latch. She'd seen her share of tough cases, but something about this cat felt different. The air was sharp with tension. Metal scraped as she slid the lock. In a flash, the cat lunged. Claws struck the bars with a screech. Claire flinched back, then froze. The cat wasn't aiming for her. She had twisted her body sideways, throwing herself between Claire's hand and the dark corner of the cage. Her tail bristled. Her back arched, teeth bared not in attack, but in defense. Something moved in the shadows behind her. A small shift, a fragile sound. Claire's breath caught. Were you hiding? The room seemed to shrink around them. She leaned closer, heart pounding, trying to see. And that's when she realized she wasn't alone with just one cat. Before we continue with this story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell. Let us know in the comments where you are listening from. Claire's breath fogged against the cold steel bars. At first, she thought her eyes were playing tricks. But then the movement came again, tiny and fragile, a shift in the shadows behind the snarling cat. Something impossibly small stirred. Claire leaned closer, heart hammering. And there it was, a kitten. It was no bigger than a curled hand, fur damp and uneven. Its head bobbed weakly as if even gravity was too heavy. Eyes sealed shut, breathing ragged, chest lifting in shallow, frantic bursts. Claire's stomach dropped. The mother cat's body stiffened, following Claire's gaze. With a violent hiss, she threw herself sideways, for exploding into a spiked wall. Her tail lashed the air. Her claws sank into the newspaper lining. Every instinct screamed she would strike. But Claire saw the truth. The cat wasn't lunging to harm her. She was shielding the tiny body with every ounce of her strength. "What in the world?" Claire whispered. Footsteps shuffled down the hall. Jenna's voice rang out. "Claire, did you open it?" Claire didn't move. Her throat was tight. There's something else in here." Jenna came up beside her. The smell of bleach and antiseptic clung to the air, sharp in Claire's nose. The hallway echoed with the restless sounds of other animals. Paws scratching, a low bark in the distance. But all of it faded against the sight inside the cage. Jenna bent lower, squinting through the bars. "Oh my God!" The kitten shivered once, like a leaf caught in a cold wind. Jenna's hand flew to her mouth. No one said she had babies. "Maybe no one knew," Claire murmured. The mother cat spat, claws raking the bars again, a metallic screech that sliced through the silence. She stood so tall her spine arched like a drawn bowstring. "She'll kill you if you go in there," Jenna whispered. Claire shook her head. "No, she's not trying to hurt me. She's protecting." Behind them, other staff had gathered, murmurs rising like the rustle of dry leaves. "Looks feral to me. That thing's a nightmare. We should have had her put down weeks ago." Claire turned sharply. "Quiet." Her voice cracked with a raw edge, stronger than she felt. The others stilled, but the doubt in their eyes remained. In this shelter, danger was not debated. Cats who scratched, who hissed, who bit, they were tagged, labeled, forgotten. But now, looking into those wide, haunted eyes, Claire saw no malice, only desperation. The kitten gave a faint jerk. Its legs twitched weakly, then stilled again. Claire's knees hit the cold tile floor as she crouched lower. She pressed her gloved hand gently against the bars. "Hey!" she whispered, not sure if she was speaking to the mother or herself. "It's okay. We're not here to take her from you. We just want to help." The cat's pupils thinned, ears pinned flat. She let out a guttural snarl that seemed to shake her whole rib cage. "She's going to rip your arm off," Jenna said softly. Claire didn't move her hand. "No. Look at her. She's shaking." And it was true. The mother's legs trembled where they held her ground. Her fur quivered with every sharp breath. Fear radiated off her like heat. She's been through something, Claire murmured. Something bad. No one argued. They could all see the scars. Thin white lines cut across her nose, her ears, her flank. Each one a memory she would never tell. The kitten stirred again, but weaker this time. Its mouth opened in a silent cry. Nothing came out. Claire's chest clenched. She won't let us near it, Jenna said. We can't even try. If we don't, that baby won't last a night. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the distant drip of a leaking pipe and the soft hum of fluorescent lights. One of the older workers, Thomas, folded his arms. His voice was low, hard. Protocol says that the mother is too aggressive, we separate them. For safety. She'll lose her mind if we try, Claire said quickly. Better than losing fingers, Thomas muttered. Claire looked back at the cage. The mother cat's chest rose and fell in sharp bursts. Her gaze was wild, burning with a single message, mine. A rush of memory filled Claire. She was 10 years old, standing on her grandmother's porch as a stray dog snarled at anyone who came near her pups. People had called it savage. Her grandmother had only smiled. That's not cruelty, child. That's love with teeth. Claire swallowed hard. This isn't hate, she said. It's protection. Can't you see that? Jenna glanced at the trembling kitten, then at Claire. Doubt softened, but only slightly. Even if you're right, what do we do? Claire stared at the baby, its breaths rattling like broken machinery. She could feel time slipping. Her hand trembled against the bars. We wait, and we try. We earn her trust. The others shifted uncomfortably. Waiting wasn't policy. Waiting wasn't safe. But Claire couldn't tear her eyes away from the kitten. Then suddenly, a sound cracked the silence. A cry, thin, broken, piercing. The kitten's tiny mouth opened and released a weak squeak that echoed through the hall. Every head snapped toward the cage. The mother cat reacted instantly. With a fierce growl, she dropped her body down, curling into a shield around her baby. Her paws scooped it close, her chin pressing against its frail chest. She glared at the humans through bars, her eyes blazing, daring them to try. The kitten's cry faded into a faint whimper, its body pressed tight against her warmth, its breath fluttering fast and shallow. Claire's own lungs fell hollow. She whispered, "She won't let us near it." The truth weighed heavy. The mother cat had chosen her stance. No human hands would touch that baby tonight. And as the shelter fell into silence, the sound of the kitten's weak breaths filled the room like a ticking clock, each one threatening to be the last. The night stretched long after the kitten's frail cry. Nobody slept well in the shelter. The sound had lingered in their ears, fragile and haunting, like a plea left unanswered. By morning, the staff gathered in the break room. The smell of bitter coffee mixed with disinfectant drifting in from the halls. Tension hung heavier than the steam rising from paper cups. Thomas cleared his throat. "We can't leave it like this. That kitten won't last another day. And we can't get near it without losing an arm," Jenna muttered. She rubbed a red mark on her wrist, where the mother cat had swiped at her through the bars the night before. Claire sat apart, silent, eyes fixed on the worn tabletop. Every word from the others pressed against her like a weight. She could still see the kitten's trembling body, still hear that broken cry. "She's too far gone," Thomas went on. "Feral, mean. It'd be safer for everyone if we—" "No." The word burst from Claire's lips before she could stop herself. The room stilled. "No," she repeated more softly. "She's not mean. She's terrified. If we can't reach her, then the kitten doesn't stand a chance. We have to try a different way." Jenna frowned. "Different how?" Claire swallowed, her throat dry. "We don't force her. We wait. We show her she's safe. We make her trust us." Laughter scoffed from one corner. "What do you plan to do? Read her a bedtime story?" Claire's voice steadied. "If that's what it takes." The others shifted uneasily. Trust wasn't standard procedure. Protocol was cages, injections, gloves, and control. But Claire's eyes burned with a quiet fire that made the room fall silent again. Finally, Thomas shook his head. "You got one day. One. After that, we call the director. The hours crawled. Claire pulled a folding chair up to the cage. The mother cat crouched inside, eyes glowing in the dim light, muscles taut. The kitten stirred weakly at her belly, barely visible. Claire sat. She didn't move closer. She didn't speak at first. She only breathed, slow and steady, letting the silence stretch until the cat's hisses quieted into low, uneasy growls. Then, gently, Claire opened a book she'd stuffed into her bag. Her grandmother's old copy of Little Women. Its spine cracked, pages yellowed. She began to read aloud in a whisper. The words filled the sterile hallway, soft and steady. The cat's ears flicked. Her tail twitched. But she did not attack. Days slipped into evening. Staff came and went, glancing curiously at Claire sitting there, murmuring to a cage like a child whispering secrets to the dark. Some shook their heads. Others muttered under their breath. By the next morning, gossip had spread beyond the shelter walls. At the diner across town, customers whispered, "She's wasting her time. That cat's a demon. They should put it down before it hurts someone." In the grocery store line, Claire overheard two women behind her. "You hear about that girl at the shelter? Trying to tame that monster? She'll regret it. Mark my words." The words followed her home, then back to the shelter. Doubt shadowed her every step. But when she sat by the cage again, book in hand, the mother cat watched her differently. Her eyes were still wild, but not as sharp. The hisses came slower, shorter, like warnings growing tired. Claire slid a dish of soft food just inside the bars. The smell drifted. The cat's nostrils flared. But she didn't touch it until Claire backed away. Only then did she creep forward, snatch a bite, and retreat back to her corner. It was a start. By the third night, the kitten had grown weaker. Its chest lifted shallowly, barely enough to stir its thin fur. The sound of its breath was faint, like paper tearing. Claire pressed her forehead against the cold bars. "Please," she whispered, "let me help her." The mother cat's eyes narrowed. She curled tighter around the fragile body, ears flat, claws flexing into the newspaper lining. Her gaze said everything. Mine. Time was slipping through their hands like sand. In the break room, Jenna cornered her. "Claire, you're breaking yourself for nothing. That kitten won't make it." Claire shook her head, voice low but fierce. "Not if I quit. Not if we give up." Jenna's expression softened for just a moment, then hardened again. "And what if you're wrong? What if she attacks you?" Claire didn't answer, because part of her knew Jenna was right. But she also knew that if she did nothing, the kitten would fade away before their eyes. By morning, the shelter hummed with whispers. Workers spoke of the feral demon. Neighbors called the front desk, asking why their tax dollars kept a monster alive. The words stung, but Claire shut them out. All that mattered was the cage, the mother, the fragile child. And as she sat again, reading softly, she made a decision. Her hand trembled as she reached for the latch. The metal was cold, heavy. She slid it carefully, quietly. The click echoed down the hall. The cat's ears snapped forward. Her body coiled. A spring wound tight. Claire's heart pounded so loudly she thought the whole shelter could hear it. She whispered, "I'm not here to hurt you. I just want to see your baby." Her fingers touched the door. She opened an inch, then another. The cage yawned open. The mother cat hissed, low and venomous. Claire's hand shook as she inched forward, every nerve alive with fear. The kitten lay still at the back. Its tiny chest barely rose. She had seconds to act, and for the first time, she crossed the line the mother had drawn in blood and scars. The cage door hung open like a secret. Claire's breath trembled in her throat. Her hand hovered just beyond the threshold, suspended in the dim space between safety and danger. The mother cat crouched low, muscles strung tight, fur bristling like thorns. A growl rumbled deep in her chest, primal and raw. Her eyes glowed with the same fire Claire had seen every day since she arrived at the shelter. Terror dressed as rage. One wrong move, and claws would find flesh. Claire's fingers shook. The hallway behind her seemed to vanish. The voices of her co-workers faded into the blur of pounding blood in her ears. There was only the cage, the cat, the fragile life in the corner. She whispered, "I won't hurt her." The cat's ears flattened. A hiss burst from her throat, slicing the air. Claire forced herself not to flinch. She inched forward, slow as breath. The cat's paw lashed out, claws flashing in the fluorescent light, stopping less than an inch from Claire's skin. Every muscle in her body screamed to pull back, but she didn't. She stayed still, eyes fixed on the scarred creature before her. Something flickered in those eyes. Not surrender, not trust. Something smaller. Something that trembled like the kitten's chest. Hesitation. Claire's voice cracked into silence. "You want her to live. So do I." She lowered her hand until her fingertips brushed the edge of the newspaper lining. The kitten stirred faintly, a weak twitch of its paw. The mother cat tensed, tail lashing. Claire froze. Her breath came shallow, careful. She waited. The cat's paw hovered, claws unsheathed. But she didn't strike. She simply stared, breathing fast, chest heaving. Seconds stretched. The world seemed to balance on a knife's edge. Finally, Claire moved again, a fraction of an inch at a time. She slid a small syringe of liquid medication from her pocket, the kind designed for neonatal kittens. Her other hand edged closer to the tiny body. The mother cat let out a guttural warning, but her paw did not fall. Claire whispered, "Just a touch. That's all." Her gloved fingers brushed fur. It was softer than air, impossibly fragile. The kitten gave a faint squeak, a thread of sound that nearly broke her heart. The cat's growl deepened, but she stayed rooted in place, her claws frozen above Claire's hand. The world tilted for one breathless moment. It wasn't about a shelter or rules or cages. It was about two mothers, one human, one feline, holding the same fragile thread of life between them. Claire's fingers stroked the kitten gently, testing its warmth. She slid the syringe toward its mouth, coaxing drops of formula past its lips. The kitten swallowed weakly. Barely, but it swallowed. Her heart leapt. "That's it. Good baby. That's it." The cat's ears flicked. Her body trembled, every muscle taut with indecision. She could end this in a second, with one swipe, one bite. But she didn't. She stayed, watching. Claire kept her movements slow, deliberate, as if the air itself might shatter. She whispered to both of them, soft nonsense words that barely carried past her lips. For the first time, the mother cat did not hiss. For the first time, she let another being touch her child. Claire felt tears prick her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. Then, the kitten convulsed. Its tiny body shuddered violently, head jerking back. A sharp squeal tore from its throat, high and thin, cutting to the hull like glass. Claire's heart stopped. The mother cat lunged forward, curling around her baby, eyes blazing with renewed fury. Her body blocked the view, her growls exploding into the sterile air. Behind Claire, the staff gasped. Someone dropped a clipboard. The sound clattered like thunder in the silence. "Claire." Jenna cried, "Pull back." But Claire couldn't move. Her hand hovered just inches away, useless, frozen. Her breath came in shallow gulps. The kitten's squeal faded. Its body twitched once more, then went limp in its mother's paws. The shelter fell into a silence so deep it pressed against her ears. The cat crouched low, curling tighter, shielding the kitten from every eye. Her growl softened into a rumbling moan, a sound of grief or warning or both. Claire's chest ached. She wanted to reach forward, to scoop the baby up, to beg it back to life. But the cat's eyes stopped her cold, wild, blazing, unyielding. This was not her moment to take. It was the cat's. She sat frozen on the tile floor, heart hammering against her ribs. She had touched the kitten. She had seen a flicker of trust. But now, as the mother wrapped herself around the fragile body, Claire could only wonder, had she been too late? The shelter at night was never truly quiet. Dogs barked in restless dreams. A metal water dish clattered as a paw knocked against it. The hum of fluorescent lights filled every corner like a dull ache. Claire sat cross-legged on the cold tile, back pressed against the cat's cage. The clock on the far wall blinked past midnight. Inside, the mother cat curled herself into an iron knot around her baby. Her eyes glowed in the dark, wide and unblinking, fixed on Claire. The kitten pressed against her belly, chest fluttering with shallow breaths. Each rise felt too fragile, as if it might be the last. Claire leaned forward, whispering softly, "You're not alone. I'm here. I'll stay." Her voice filled the stillness like a lullaby. She whispered not only to calm the cat, but to steady herself. Every time the kitten shuddered, Claire's chest squeezed tighter. She didn't know if the tiny body would survive until dawn. The mother cat's tail twitched against the newspaper lining. A low growl rumbled once, then faded. She seemed torn between fear and exhaustion. Claire pressed her forehead to the bars. "You're fighting for her. I can see it. I'll fight too." Hours dragged. In the hush, Claire's mind replayed what she knew of this cat story. She'd come from the far end of town, rescued when a landlord finally called animal control. Neighbors had complained for months. A monster cat prowling the block. "It hisses at our kids. It's savage." When officers arrived, they found her crouched in the skeleton of an abandoned house. Windows shattered, floorboards rotting. She had defended her corner with the same fire she showed now. They'd called her dangerous, unadoptable. But Claire saw the truth in the scars that marked her face and sides. Those weren't signs of cruelty given. They were signs of cruelty endured. She hadn't been prowling to attack. She'd been prowling to survive, searching for food, scraps, shelter from the cold. The monster the neighbors described was nothing more than a starving mother trying to keep her baby alive. At sunrise, the shelter buzzed with voices. Word had spread faster than Claire hoped. By the time she carried her empty coffee cup to the lobby, a cluster of townsfolk had gathered near the front desk. A man in a baseball cap shook his head. "That cat's a menace. It should have been put down already." A woman muttered. "My niece saw it once. Said it hissed at her. Mean thing." Another voice, louder, harsher. "Why waste resources? You've got healthy animals here. That one's a lost cause." Claire felt the words strike like stones. She clenched the paper cup until it crumpled in her hand. She stepped forward, voice shaking but firm. "You don't know her." The man in the cap turned. "Don't need to. I've seen her. Demon cat. You'll regret saving it." Claire's jaw tightened. "She isn't a demon. She's a mother." Laughter rippled through the crowd, cruel and dismissive. But Claire didn't back down. She thought of the kitten's faint squeak, of the way the cat had held her claws above Claire's hand but not struck. She thought of the scars, the desperate eyes. "She's not cruel," Claire said, louder now. "She's terrified." She fought because no one ever gave her a reason to trust. The room hushed, but the silence wasn't agreement, it was judgment. Claire could feel it pressing against her skin like cold air. Back in the kennel, she knelt beside the cage again. The mother cat blinked slowly at her, exhaustion etched in every line of her body. The kitten stirred faintly, letting out a thin squeak that barely rose above the hum of the lights. Claire whispered, "They don't understand you, but I do. I know what you're fighting for." She slid a fresh dish of food into the cage. The cat hesitated, then stretched forward, grabbing a mouthful before retreating again to her kitten. It was a tiny gesture, but to Claire it was proof. Trust was growing, fragile and uncertain, but real. By late afternoon, the gossip had reached the shelter board. They met in the small conference room, voices spilling out into the hallway. Claire stood just outside, hands sweating, heart pounding. Inside, Thomas's voice carried. "We can't keep spending time and resources on a cat like this. She's dangerous. The staff doesn't feel safe." Another board member agreed. "The community's complaining. Donations could suffer. We have to think of the bigger picture." Claire forced herself through the door. Every eye turned toward her. "She's not dangerous," Claire said. Her voice cracked, but she kept going. "She's protective. There's a difference." One board member sighed. "Claire, no one doubts your compassion, but you're too close. You're letting emotions cloud your judgment." Claire shook her head. "You don't see what I see." She let me touch the kitten. "She's fighting to trust us. If we give up now, we kill not just her baby. We kill the only chance she's ever had to believe in kindness." The room was silent. Her words hung heavy, trembling in the stale air. Finally, the chairwoman spoke. "We'll vote tomorrow. That will decide her fate." That night, Claire returned to the cage. Her legs ached. Her eyes burned with sleeplessness. But she sat again on the cold tile, whispering into the shadows. The kitten's breaths rattled on, thin but present. The mother's eyes softened just enough that Claire felt a flicker of hope. She leaned closer, her voice breaking into a plea. "Hold on. Just hold on. One more night." The shelter lights dimmed overhead. The building settled into uneasy quiet. Tomorrow would bring the vote. Tomorrow could bring an end. Claire pressed her hand against the bars, heart pounding. "Please don't let them take you from me." The mother cat shifted, curling tighter around her baby. Her gaze held Claire's through the shadows. It wasn't trust. Not yet. But it wasn't hatred anymore either. And for the first time, Claire thought she saw something else glimmer in those eyes. Something like a question. Something like hope. The board's decision hung like a blade in the air. Claire knew what tomorrow could bring. A vote that would seal the fate of the mother cat and her fragile baby. All night, she sat by the cage again, whispering into the shadows. The kitten's breaths were faint, shallow, each one a fragile flame that might flicker out at any second. The mother stayed curled tight, pressing her body against the tiny creature, eyes fixed on Claire as if daring her to leave. Claire couldn't, not when the board's clock ticked louder with each passing hour, not when the kitten's heartbeat pulsed weaker against time. So when dawn crept into the shelter windows, pale and cold, she made her choice. She would not wait for permission. The hall was silent as Claire slid a carrier from the storage shelf. Her hands shook, but her resolve did not. She eased the cage door open. The mother cat hissed, then froze. Her ears twitched. Claire whispered, "Please, let me help you." Her gloved hands trembled as she reached in. For one breathless second, she thought claws would tear her skin. But the cat only crouched low, eyes locked on Claire, body tense but still. Slowly, carefully, Claire scooped the kitten into a towel, then guided the mother in after her. The cat pressed herself against her baby, eyes blazing, but she didn't strike. The carrier door clicked shut. Claire exhaled shakily, hugging it close to her chest. And then she walked out of the shelter, past the rows of barking dogs, past the boardroom where decisions were made, past the walls that had held them prisoner. She didn't look back. Claire's small house was quiet when she arrived. The air smelled faintly of lavender and old books. Sunlight streamed across the hardwood floor. It was a world away from the sterile, humming shelter. She set the carrier down gently, opened the door, and stepped back. The mother cat crept out slowly, belly low to the ground, tail flicking. She sniffed the air, ears swiveling. Her eyes darted at every corner, muscles tense, ready to fend. The kitten whimpered weakly in the towel. At once, the mother darted to its side, curling around it like a shield. Claire sat cross-legged a few feet away, heart thundering. This is your home now, for as long as you need it. For hours, she didn't move. She just stayed there on the floor, breathing softly, letting the cat learn the silence was safe. By evening, something shifted. The cat no longer hissed when Claire refilled the food bowl. Her ears twitched, but she stayed close to her kitten instead of retreating. When Claire whispered, the cat's eyes softened. Just barely. It wasn't trust. Not yet. But it was the beginning of something that might grow. The next few days blurred into a rhythm of whispers and waiting. Claire hand-fed the kitten with a syringe. Her fingers steady though her heart shook. She kept her voice low, steady, a song of reassurance. The mother cat hovered, tense, watching every move. But she did not strike. Slowly, she began to shift her weight closer. Sometimes she let her nose brush the kitten while Claire fed it. Sometimes she simply sat, watching, her breath fast but not hostile. And then, on the fourth morning, the kitten's chest rose stronger. Its squeaks were louder, no longer the faint rasp of a failing body, but the fragile mew of life returning. Claire cried when she heard it. Silent tears slipped down her cheeks as the mother cat licked her baby's head, her eyes glinting with something softer than fear. The aggressive cat was gone. In her place was a mother who had finally been given room to be what she was meant to be. But word spread quickly. By the week's end, the board knew what Claire had done. They called her in. The chairwoman's voice was stern. You broke protocol. You removed a dangerous animal without authorization. Do you understand what that means? Claire stood tall, though her hands shook. I understand I saved them. The board murmured. Some scowled. Others sighed. Claire, Thomas said sharply, you could lose your job for this. I don't care, Claire answered. Her voice didn't waver. All that mattered was saving them. You called her dangerous. You called her a demon. But she's none of that. She's a mother. She's love with claws. And if we can't see that, then we don't deserve this work. The room was silent. And then something unexpected happened. Jenna, standing by the wall, cleared her throat. She's right. I saw it too. That cat didn't want to kill us. She wanted to keep her baby alive. Claire gave her a chance. And now that kitten's breathing strong. Whispers rose. Murmurs shifted. Slowly, the tide began to turn. By the end of the meeting, the board had no vote to cast. The decision had already been made, not by them, but by the town itself. Word of Claire's sacrifice had spread. People came forward with donations, with letters, with voices louder than gossip. Not a mob against a cat, but a community rallying behind her. Weeks passed. The kitten grew stronger. Its eyes opened to reveal pale blue glimmers, wide with curiosity. It stumbled across the floor on shaky legs, always circling back to its mother's warmth. And the mother cat? She was still wary, still scarred, still prone to sudden stiffening at loud noises. But when Claire sat on the floor with them, she no longer hissed. One evening, as the house grew quiet and the lavender smell drifted in from the garden, something happened. The cat padded forward, slow and cautious. She lowered her head and, just for a moment, pressed her cheek against Claire's hand. It was not a surrender. It was not complete trust. It was something better. It was the first choice she'd made freely in a long, long time. Months later, the adoption papers were signed. Claire stood in the shelter lobby, pen in hand, her eyes wet. On the forms, 2 names were written, the mother and her kitten, both now hers. The staff clapped quietly. Some smiled. Even Thomas gave a small nod. Claire carried the carrier out into the sunlight. The kitten mewed inside, strong and steady now. The mother's eyes blinked slowly at her, no longer burning with terror, but glowing with something gentler. Love. Once, they'd call her aggressive, a demon, a monster. But the truth was clear now, shining in every scar and every breath of the kitten at her side. She had never been cruel. She had only been a mother, and in the end, that was enough.